Hello and welcome to the Larger Than Necessary First Player Token podcast. This is episode 123. My name is Chris.
My name is David.
Just the two of us today, David.
Yep.
We're back from a long absence.
Yes.
Here to talk about video games. It's been 4 months since we talked about video games.
Is that how long it was?
It's 4 months. I checked the... I had to actually go and check the SoundCloud feed to find out. I was that lazy, I just went on to SoundCloud instead of just, looking myself. But, 4 months.
Been a long, long time.
Have you played a lot of video games in that time?
Yes. Loads.
I'm so
fucking tons.
I've played an absolute shitload. And the problem is that we've just not been able to get together to record because of... as we discussed in previous episodes, quite a drastic change of circumstances for like me, you, and Pavel. And now Ewan's life has kind of changed a bit as well. Pavel is unfortunately still in a rut. I'm not entirely sure which city he lives in now.
No.
Because it just seems every time I message him, he's in like London or Manchester or some other like arse end going somewhere, just fixing people's computers and problems.
I know. He's some guy. I think the problem is his employers have just sort of figured out that they can just employ one person to do like all of these things.
Well, no, see, the problem is that Pavel's allowed that to happen.
Yes.
So basically he's doing three people's work and he's not questioning it at all. And now he's just a massive ball of stress and his employers are like, this is working. Now, Dave, you're no longer the manager of a cafe. What happened? Are you going to tell us?
No.
Okay.
No. What I'm saying is just never be a cafe manager.
Yes. It definitely sounded like an absolute nightmare. I think you're a happier person for it.
Yeah, for the most part. It had its good sides. Some of it was nice.
Well, I've settled into my new career. I've kind of got my feet under the desk a bit more, shall we say. I'll try not to use any more business terms. But but things have kind of settled in a bit more for me now. So here we are, back in the podcasting world. I'm so happy. So glad, considering I'm paying money for this. Right, we're going to talk about some video games then. So let's just get straight into it. We've had a long enough absence. We're not going to delay this any longer. And what I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to talk about a game I'm going to get absolutely torn into it. which is actually
usually
unusual.
My job.
It's usually your job, yeah. But it's quite unusual for me to just get torn into a game. But what I've been doing, like I say, I've played a number of games over the past 4 months, but this is stuck in my mind, this game. This is Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And it's stuck in my mind for a reason, and that's just because it is such a massive disappointment compared to its predecessor. Have you played any Tom Clancy games, Dave?
Not for a long, long time.
A long time? They go back quite far, don't they?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know when it was, 2005 was the last time I played a Tom Clancy game.
Wow. Do you know which one that was?
Before Ghost Recon even existed. So I think they've changed. Well, I know they have. Yes,
they've definitely changed. And there's been change between Ghost Recon Wildlands, which is the predecessor, and Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And I'm going to say that for the vast majority of those changes, they're not for the better. I have no idea why they decided to do what they did with this game. Now, in its sort of bare bones, and in the essence of it, it is pretty much the same thing as Wildlands was. It's a kind of squad-based open world shooter, generally third person. You can, I think, play... I might be wrong, actually. I don't think you can play first person, but you do aim through scopes and that kind of thing, but you can change that to over-the-shoulder view if you prefer. But I don't think that's sort of in the spirit of the game, shall we say. I think generally because of the upgrades that you can give to your guns, you can use different scopes and that kind of thing, which is quite cool, but it's something that existed in Wildlands as well. So what I'll say is that everything that was in Wildlands that was fun, that made the game fun, has been removed. And I don't know if they did this. I don't know if they did this in an attempt to give a sort of more realistic feel to it, but they've just failed. They've just made the game such a bloody drudge. It's just I actually, when I'm talking about it, I'm getting frustrated just talking about it. The thing that I liked about Wildlands, right, is that I played it with a couple of friends, and we played through the whole thing, and we just played together, and we had some quite late night sessions, and it was quite good just doing the little squad-based things. You'd get a mission, it would generally involve going to some base somewhere, and, you know, getting some intel of some sort, or maybe capturing somebody, or, you know, killing a certain person, that kind of thing. The first game was set in Bolivia, which caused quite a bit of political outrage because of the way the game was represented as being, where the country was represented as being this kind of country run by drug barons.
Is that not true?
Well, maybe it is, but you know, I don't. The way that they represented it probably wasn't true. With the way that, you know, there are just like squads of soldiers at checkpoints that all work for drug barons and that kind of thing that are just constantly trying to kill you.
You know what they should do? They should just set all these games in Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Scottish people would be like, yeah, brilliant, we love it. We would, you know...
Yeah, we wouldn't get outraged by it.
Armed checkpoints. I mean, if you people could be living in burnt-out shells of houses, and everyone would be like, this is amazing. We'd just be so happy.
The thing that would infuriate Scottish people would be if you just put a stereotypical Scotsman in with, like, you know, like Groundskeeper Willie from The Simpsons or something playing bagpipes. Like, that would infuriate us. But if you represented the place as just, like, being The Scheme, you know, that TV show, when it was set in Kilmarnock or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be
if you
like
just
all
represented it like that, we'd be like, yeah, it's kind of like that.
All these like boarded up houses, and like there'd be a burnt out ice cream truck, and everyone would be like, yeah, it's a bit like that.
There'd be a school kid throwing stones at you and calling you a fanny, that kind of thing. So yeah, so like I say, Wildlands was set in Bolivia, and they got in a bit of trouble for it, so much so that in an update to the game they had to put a disclaimer into the title screen to basically say that this game does not represent Bolivia in any shape or form. But the second game, they've kind of decided, okay, well, let's not set it in a real country, and they've set it in a made-up island out in the Pacific, I'm assuming. And the story is just bullshit. I mean, whereas in the first game you were kind of this American squad of guys that were sent in to take down this drug baron, you know, I mean, not believable, but, you know, so at least vaguely realistic. In this one, they've kind of set like 3 years in the future, so it's like 2022 or something like that. And you're supposed to be playing it as kind of the same character that you were supposed to play in the first game, this guy called Nomad, or Girl, I should say. But they've set it in this island where it's almost like a, what's his name, Elon Musk type character. It's kind of set up this world 2.0 in this island, this isolated place where everything's, you know, self-sustainable and futuristic technology, electric cars and all that kind of thing. But there's been a bit of a military coup where some military that have presumably, because I've skipped a lot of the story in this game because it's just utter nonsense, so presumably the this military group were brought in to try and defend the place, and they've just taken over instead. Now you can kind of play the prequel to this because they added an expansion thing as such into Wildlands, which introduced this character that was meant to be this old squad mate of yours from years ago who's gone a bit rogue and decided that, you know what, I'm just going to run things my way, but he's doing it with an iron fist sort of thing. So he's taken over this island in Breakpoint. And you're essentially taken into this island to find out what the hell's happened. Your helicopters get shot down. You find some of your squad mates from the original game, actually. You find the guys that were in the original game that were constantly talking about quinoa and...
Why are they talking about quinoa? Is that like someone's code name?
Well, yeah, they're talking about quinoa because there's a lot of quinoa factories in this idea Bolivia, apparently. And you just get all this sort of, like, bullshit chatter. You get this bullshit chatter from them in Wildlands all the time whenever you're travelling about the place. Talking about quinoa and cocaine, that's the other thing.
Quinoa and cocaine.
Quinoa and cocaine, it's a good night in. So... yeah, so you find your like original squad, and it's kind of sad because one of them's dead, and then there's these two other guys that were in your squad that are injured, and so you're Nomad, you're now going it alone. But I mean, the whole thing is that you're teaming up with your mates again, but you can team up with other people online and that kind of thing, and just go around this island doing stuff. Now, as I said, they've removed all the stuff that was in the first game. that made the whole thing fun. Okay, friendly fire is now off permanently.
Did that make it fun?
That made it amazing fun. I'm telling you what, right?
Shooting your mates.
Yeah, shooting your mates, because it's like, it wasn't like death was instant. You could always heal people, get them back up. And in this new one, you just like, you shoot people and all they do is flinch, and then a bit of blood appears in their face, which is quite fun when you shoot them with an Uzi. But yeah, friendly fire's off, and I mean, instantly, like the first thing I did when I went into that game with my mates was I tried to shoot one of my mates, and instantly I was just kind of like, what? And I went straight to the options to look for where the friendly fire option was, and it didn't exist. And I was just like, what the hell? What the hell? Now, some of you are probably thinking, okay, that's just because, Chris, you're a bit of a twat and you just like to shoot your mates, but, you know, some people like that kind of thing. Now, one thing that we always talked about, me and my mates, when we played this, when we played Wildlands, was that the spawning in it was terrible. So you could spawn in things like helicopters, as in like you're kind of calling for assistance, and you could spawn in a helicopter or a car, or when you died you would respawn. But the spawning was so awful, it would sometimes just spawn things in the worst places where you couldn't get to, or you died and respawned and you were up a cliff or something like that, or you were, you know, somewhere stupid. Somehow they've made that worse in Breakpoint. Now, you can't spawn in vehicles in Breakpoint anymore. Again, a downside to the game, because it does kind of make the game drag on a little bit more. But when you respawn yourself, sometimes crazy shit happens. Like, you might respawn inside the game and you can't get out. You have to just throw a grenade at yourself to kill yourself in order to respawn somewhere else. Like, game-breaking stuff. Sometimes when you spawn in, if you fail a mission and respawn next to that sort of base that you were attacking or something like that, sometimes the game spawns the vehicles inside the base, okay? So these vehicles that are inside the base, that belong to the enemy, sometimes it spawns them inside each other and they blow up. Now, when they blow up, it alerts the entire base. This is something that happens over and over again. So every time you respawn next to that base, that vehicle explodes again. And it's just kind of like, this is game-breaking shit. Why have you not fixed this? Why did, like, this must, because this is not just me. Like, it's not just me this is happening to. This is happening to other people as well. I've seen it. This is game-breaking. You need to fix that. Like I say, the story's bullshit. I'm not interested in it. I'm sure there's some, like, you know, attempts at being really grim-dark and attempts at being really playing to your emotions and that kind of thing, and it's just shit. It's bad. The characters are awful. Like, it's just badly acted, like voice acted, and you just completely lose interest in it. They've also changed the game, and this is quite a major thing from Wildlands. They've changed it to a looter shooter.
Oh.
Now, in Wildlands, you could pick up enemies' guns, but they were always just basic guns. Now, the guns that you had were pretty basic, but you could modify them. They didn't have like levels or anything like that, but you could modify them. In order to modify them, you had to go around to certain bases in the world and pick up the equipment to modify them. It was quite a cool little thing. So it was like, okay, I want to play as a sniper, I want this really good scope, let's go and get some intel and find out where that scope is, go to that base, get that scope, that's me permanently got that scope for that gun now, okay? They've done something similar to it, except that now they've introduced the Division style gear levels. So you are constantly picking up new guns of the same type that you already have, but you'll have a different gear level to what you've got. It's always just getting higher and higher and higher, just slightly higher, maybe 1 point higher every time you pick up a new gun or a new piece of equipment. And it's the same with like your clothes that you're wearing as well. So you pick up a pair of jeans that are two points higher than the pair of chinos that you're wearing. And they all have like stats on them and things like that, so like they might increase your accuracy or your range, or they might increase your technique cooldown or something like that. But it's nonsense. Like, I don't want that in this game. Like, in Wildlands, it was cool because it was a squad-based thing and it was realistic, and you would pick up a gun here and there and you would modify your gun, and now it's just like you're just picking up 1,000 guns every time you play the game. It's constantly switching them out every time that you switch it, even if you pick up a gun of the same type. So let's say you pick up a submachine gun of some type. If you pick up the same type submachine gun, you then have to go back into your menu and modify that new one to put the stuff on it that you had previously on the old one. It doesn't keep that. So you're just like, this game, you're constantly in your menu just equipping stuff and unequipping stuff, and it's nonsense. Like, I don't know why they decided that a Ghost Recon game would be a good game for that kind of thing. If anything, they've made it less realistic that way.
Well, yeah. That's kind of sad. This is going to tie into some of the some of the games that I've been playing. I've got similar complaints, but it's because they see games like Borderlands.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's really successful. We need to let's just copy that.
Jump on that bandwagon. Except
we'll make it not as good. Just, let's make it slightly worse. It's annoying because not people want their games to be different.
Yeah.
Like, if let's say you really love Borderlands, that doesn't mean you want every game you play to be Borderlands.
Exactly.
Generally, people don't.
It's just lowest common denominator stuff, isn't it? It's just like, well, here's all the things that were good in this game, and other games are doing that as well. So let's make our game the same as that. Don't do that. Like, people should make their games different if they want them to be popular. Because this game has tanked in sales, by the way. I mean, it was a massive disappointment. Like, it reviewed quite badly for a Ghost Recon game compared to how Wildlands reviewed, in particular. It's a complete nonsense, to be honest. Just it's a waste. They've wasted what could have been a good game here. And I mean, they kind of acknowledged as well that Wildlands was a bit silly in the way that you play it, because they released a sort of expansion thing for it where you could drive monster trucks about the place around in Bolivia and have monster truck races and that kind of thing. They acknowledged that the game was a wee bit silly. And in Breakpoint, it's like, let's make it a bit more gritty and realistic, but also less realistic by making it a looter shooter. Like, why? Okay, I can maybe move on to the good points. There are other bad points that I could go on about this game, but I mean, I've talked about it long enough already. One of the good things that I think about Breakpoint, and I would have been really happy if this is the only thing that they changed between that and Wildlands other than the setting and stuff, is the fact that they introduced classes to your characters. So you've got like 4 different classes that you can pick. So they didn't have that in Wildlands. They had... basically everybody was just a sort of bog standard soldier, and it was up to you based on your equipment and stuff how you wanted to specialise. Whereas in Breakpoint, you at the start of the game you kind of have to pick a sort of medic type character, or a sniper, or a stealth type character, or an assault character. Now you can switch between them at various points in the game. You can decide to just go and play as a different class if you like. But what I liked about that was that one of the things about Wildlands was that basically, me and my mates just we all had medic drones. And anytime somebody went down, hide behind a wall, send your medic drone over, get them back up again. And that was kind of a wee bit silly. That was kind of like almost making the game too easy. They've kind of got rid of that so that one person can be the medic, and they have the medic drone, but they've changed the way the medic drone works as well, so you have to directly shoot them, and there's like a proper technique cooldown, and there's certain things that you have to do in order to get that technique back, if you see what I mean. So it's not like you can't just constantly heal each other all the time like you could in Wildlands. So I actually think that was a good addition to the game, and one of the few good additions that they've made. Keep all that stuff, get rid of everything else, and just make another Wildlands game and I'll be happy. But for now, Breakpoint, it's not great. It's just not great. And the thing is, I'm going to keep playing it, mainly because it lets me spend time playing games with my mates.
Yeah.
Even though it's horrendously broken, we still have a bit of a laugh with it sometimes, but it's not quite as enjoyable as Wildlands was. So, yeah, it's a bit of a thumbs down for me for this game.
It's strange as well, because, I mean, who makes The Division and who makes these Ghost Recon games? Is it the same people?
I think it's Ubisoft to make them all, isn't it? I'm just
right, so they're the same publisher. So, if you've already got, like, they've made The Division twice now, haven't they?
Yeah, so they've made a Division 2.
Yeah, and the first one people didn't like anyway, for various reasons. I mean, they played it a bit and then they were like, I don't really like it. And so it seems so strange to me that they would take the other game that they have and make it like The Division as well.
Aye.
That's like, that's bizarre.
It's strange, because then what's going to happen? I mean, are all these Tom Clancy games just all going to become these looter shooter style things with gear levels and that are just not as fun anymore?
Yeah, and Tom Clancy would not approve of this.
Tom Clancy would be spinning in his grave right now.
I feel like that's all that research I put in over the years.
All that gun research.
It was not for this.
Yep.
So that people can pick up an Uzi. They'll be like, look guys, Jack Ryan arms his 52 power Uzi I mean, that's not in the
but
books.
only for 5 minutes, because he's going to pick up a 53 power Uzi soon. Oh, by the way, they added crafting into Breakpoint, and it was completely needless. There is no need for it. This is just another game where they went, crafting's a thing that people like. It's shit. It doesn't work. You don't need it. Utterly pointless. Anyway, yes, let's stop talking about that now. So that's Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. That came out at the beginning of October. It is by Ubisoft, as we discussed. It is available on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Okay. It's also coming to Google Stadia, this new Google thing. The new Google thing.
Yeah, is that's the streaming?
Yeah, the streaming service
games thing.
It is coming to that apparently. So there you go.
I don't really care.
Me neither. I'm too old for that kind of thing.
It's difficult to get excited about it. I know the people who are involved in this want us to be very excited about it, but it's just games, like delivered in a slightly different way. But the games are still the same.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's just the same game. In fact, it's probably going to be worse to play if it's a streaming thing.
Well, potentially, but
I'm assuming. I mean,
it's like
get off my lawn.
Games as a service. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It is going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. I don't think it's going to be a big thing, to be honest. I mean, I still like disc copies of games, so.
Yeah, I suppose there's an element of convenience to it, potentially. But the thing with these as a service services.
As a service services.
Yeah, the as a service services. Service as a service. The one thing with them is, with a game, there's only like certain games I want to play.
Yeah.
Really. So quite often what you find with these service-based things is like, you're like, oh, I quite want to, like, to use like the movie example, you're like, oh, I quite fancy watching such and such a movie. Well, there's a fairly good chance that it won't be provided on the service that you've signed up to. So you have to go and like sign up for something else. So it's going to be kind of similar with the games thing. It's like, I don't want to play like every game that comes out.
Yeah,
but I guess maybe some people do, though.
And there is the big discussion that this is just going to bring game piracy back in a massive way, because people are just not going to sign up to all these services and pay money for all of them in order to play certain games. People are just going to go, well, maybe I've signed up to Google Stadia. They don't have this game that I want to play, so I'm just going to pirate it, rather than sign up to this other company's one. So, yeah, there is the whole discussion, but... well. Let's talk about more games, though, Dave.
Okay.
So I think it's your go.
I'm going to give you my games roundup.
Go for it.
Of what I've been playing in the past 4 months.
Do you want some Benny Hill music to go with this?
The music from the gallery in Take Heart is what we need. But the amusing thing is, in the past 4 months, a number of games, like big landmark games that we've been waiting for, have come out. And I have not played any of those.
Wow.
I've not played Outer Worlds.
No.
I've not played Death Stranding. There's probably a lot of other games that I haven't played. Instead, I've played a lot of really rubbish games.
I'm really looking forward to this.
I'm not really sure why. Well, some of them I know why I played them. Like, for example, I've finally got round to playing Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh yeah, I saw you've been playing a lot of that.
Yeah, it was on sale, and I just, with the expansion, so I picked it up. And it's an interesting one. I was really looking forward to playing this game. But one of the things I've noticed is you don't really hear people talking about Horizon that much. It's a sort of game that received a lot of critical acclaim at the time, but you don't hear people like referencing it really, not a great deal.
That's true.
And I'll be honest, a little bit disappointed with it.
Really?
It's a bit of a letdown. Yeah. I haven't finished it, though. I mean, I'm a long way off finishing it, and maybe that's part of the problem. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that are really good about it. The whole, like, I love the main character Aloy and the voice acting, and that's good. She's a fun, unusual character for a computer game.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole world, the world building, as games developers like to call it, with the crazy monsters wandering around what is it? Is it stone punk? What kind of punk is it?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
There is a term for it. I'm sure Pavel brought up that
tribal
punk term. Yeah, it's something like
Mason
that. Tribal
punk.
Something like that. You know.
It's that thing. There's a lot of rocks and grass and stone and future.
Yes.
It's a lot of like ruined buildings and big robots, robotic animals, and they are amazing. In that part of it, I really liked. But what I don't like about it is its open worldiness and the way that it has all that stuff that I hate in open world games. And it would be very hypocritical of me to say that I loved it in Horizon when I hate it in Far Cry.
Yeah. There is a bit of Far Cry in this, isn't there?
I think there's a lot of Far Cry.
Aye.
And I find that really disappointing that they just went down that sort of road of this is what an open world game is like. And it's just full of stuff that I don't want to do. But sort of feel compelled to do because I have this sort of all these check marks on my map. Although I did find you could turn them all off, which helped quite a lot because then they didn't bother me so much. But it's just full of atrocious side missions. And I think maybe what I should do is go back to it and ignore all of that and just like blast through the main story. Yeah. And maybe it'll be better that way. Although I don't have high hopes for the story either.
No, the main story is actually, I quite liked the main story. I thought it was pretty good. I think it got to a point, and I think a lot of games, you get this, but you kind of know what's going to happen. When you get to a certain point in the story, you're just kind of like, right, okay, I see what's happening here then. Well,
I got to a bit, I don't know how to say this without spoiling it, and I don't know how the story goes anyway, but I took an awful long time to get to this bit, but I get the feeling it's still quite early on in the story. I had to do a lot of stuff. The trial thing, which took me ages to get to because I was wasting time doing other things. And then I had to do the whole trials thing, and then there was a lot of walking from one room to the next. I hate that. And then they're like, what? Push forward. Like, it's like push forward cutscene. Well, it's not cutscene, it's like listen to someone talking. You know that thing where they won't let you run?
Yes.
You have to walk alongside someone and it won't let you run because you're supposed to be listening. That's the worst thing ever. Like, games developers should know that if they're doing that they're doing something wrong. Like, that sort of enforced...
The thing is,
horrible.
Games developers are convinced that you are absorbed in their world and their story.
I know.
And then this is the kind of game, like Horizon Zero Dawn is a kind of open world game where you probably should be engrossed in the world and the story, but people like you and I are quite impatient, so we just kind of we want to do the next bit.
A story should be engrossing because it's a good story.
Yes.
Not the other way around. Like God of War was like this as well, and a number of other games are. But yeah, there was a bit where something happened. The long and short of it is, I think I know what's going on in this story, and it's meant to be a twist, but they've made it so obvious that it's not really a twist. Would that be right?
I'm not sure because I don't know what you're thinking. I mean, okay. I mean, you can tell me now, and I will edit it out.
Right. Okay. There's a bit where after you do all the trials and you talk to the old lady and you see a sort of holographic version of what Aloy thinks, sort of, because and what I'm guessing is, would that be correct?
See, there is a bit of a twist in that tale.
Right. See, so there's more to it than...
That was all I'd have to say about that.
Oh well, I'm going to play more and find out. But yeah, so played a bit of Horizon. It's okay. I also played a quick bit of Gwent. Pavel talked about the single-player spin-off version of the Gwent card game.
Yes.
on a previous podcast many moons ago, and you can go back and listen to that. I didn't play that. I've been playing the original multiplayer collectible card game. It's like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering. It's that kind of deal, except you play on a computer rather than physical cards. But collectible card game. Yeah, I've never played any of these games before. Really, it's such a strange experience. I don't know if you've played like any of the modern incarnations of these.
Of collectible card games.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about like digital versions of them, then yes, I have. I've played a bit of Hearthstone.
Right. Well, I don't know how Hearthstone compares to Gwent, but like there's an interesting game in the Gwent, the card game, at its core, which has nothing really to do with deck building. Not really, because that's not what the game's about. Everyone plays with the same set of like, there's like 12 different archetypes that are usable.
Yes.
At any given, there's a certain limited number of archetypes that you'll come across because they're the sort of best ways to play the game using the cards that are available to you. So there's not really a lot. It's not really about deck building. It's about the actual mechanics of the game itself. Mm-hmm. And it's a very kind of, in a way, it's not even about playing. It's not about clever card play either. It's a very dry game in a way. Like, you've got all these special effects and monsters and stuff, but like, you get a hand of cards and you're pretty much going to play the hand that you're given, and like everyone would play that hand pretty much the same way. And in Gwent, what it is about, or most of it is about, is deciding whether to continue playing or whether to pass. I don't want to get into the mechanics of the game, but that's the big part of it, and it's almost like a poker.
It's kind of like a push your luck thing,
sort of. But it's more about judgment and knowing the game and statistics. It's a bit like how poker is like, you can learn the rules to play poker, but that's not really what the game is about. It's about learning, and then it's about, in poker it's about gambling, and there is a sort of taking a chance. But it plays that same kind of way. And that's fine. But if you want to play that game, you can't play that game until you've got like the cards to make a competitive deck. It's like weird. So you have to go through this weird process of either of playing with a suboptimal deck in order to get yourself to the point where you have a proper deck of cards that you can then play the game properly.
I mean,
it's like playing Monopoly, but like you're not allowed to buy all of the properties to begin with. You have to like the people you're playing against. They can, they have they can buy any of them, but you're like, oh no, you can't buy the utilities yet. You have to you have to work a bit.
Do you remember the card game in Final Fantasy VIII?
Oh, I never played it.
You never played Final Fantasy VIII? Because that was kind of similar to it, because it was kind of like you were running, you would just find random people throughout the world that would play this card game with you. But it was a case of like, if you won, you got to take a card off the other person out of their deck, basically, and keep it. And you did have to go through this whole rigmarole of like playing the same person over and over again until you had like most of their good cards, basically, before you could then move on to finding the next person in the world to play against. Because if you didn't do that, and you went and played against the next person, the chances of you winning were pretty low. So yeah, there is. I mean, I know it's different because they've kind of released Gwent as a standalone thing, but in like Final Fantasy VIII, there was that whole thing of just, you were just running about the world if you wanted to do that. So I mean, they kind of did something similar in Final Fantasy X with Blitzball as well. Like, there was Blitzball players, but you had to go through this whole rigmarole of running around the world finding Blitzball players to play in your team. And if you didn't do that, then there was no chance that you would win any of the big games or anything.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's the whole sort of free-to-play kind of deal. And I don't know, it's a very odd phenomenon. Like, I understand that there are games that you play where there's this sort of artificial progression curve, like a lot of single player games that we play, but it's not even like that in Gwent. It's just like you get cards randomly and you hope that you're going to get cards that you need until eventually you've got one of the decks that you can play with. It just find it odd that you have to go through a weird rigmarole before you can actually start playing the game properly. It's like you have to work for it. Very strange. I mean, even if you spent money, like spending money just gives you like random cards, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, how much money are you going to spend? It's like, how much will it cost? You've got no way of knowing. So you've got the idea of like, you can pay to play Gwent, but we're not going to tell you how much it costs. Could be £20, could be £100. Who can say? Really weird. Anyway, so I kind of gave up on that eventually. It was a bit of a shame. I just wanted something to play on my phone. But
I mean, it's probably, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that Pavel isn't here, because you've basically just got ripped into a couple of games that he really loves.
Yeah, but I think he would agree with me on the Gwent thing, not on the Destiny thing. I'm sure.
Nah, he wouldn't. He wouldn't because he's a fanboy.
Yeah, but he played specifically the single player Gwent, which I'm sure is great because it has a managed progression curve and you're not playing against real people.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, I played Gwent and I was like, as soon as I got to there's a certain point where you get to where you just start encountering people who've got proper decks. So initially I was like, oh, this is quite fun. I was like winning games here and there. And then suddenly I wasn't. Like, just every game I played, I was just getting absolutely annihilated. And then you're supposed to do all the missions and stuff while this is going on. It's like, you know, play a certain number of cards, like 50 times. And it's like, well, I'm just going to have to play through all these games against people like losing every game so that I can do my mission and get my fake soft currency, which will eventually let me to open a pack to get a card that I may or may not need. Oh man, it's just mental. I don't know why people put themselves through this sort of thing.
People love that kind of shit though. Like, people love the surprise, what card am I going to get here sort of thing. I mean, it is just a form of gambling. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, initially it's fun, but then you start getting cards you've already got, and oh man. Anyway.
Yes. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, I moved on pretty quickly from Gwent onto what else have I played that I hated? Well, yeah, guess what else went free to play? Destiny 2.
Way.
Right.
Oh,
Destiny
sounds like
2.
You've got to get torn into this.
Right. People don't have a lot of good things to say about Destiny as a whole.
Uh-huh.
And I thought maybe they were wrong, because people usually are. But I played Destiny 2 and they've got a point. This game is the worst. I can see why people hate it. Have you played Destiny or Destiny 2 at all?
I played a bit of Destiny and I can't remember what, but Destiny 2, I played the first little bit of it because I think there was like an early access or a sort of demo style thing that came out just before it was released. And I mean, I didn't play it again, so didn't feel the need to buy it or anything. So there's not much to say about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a sort of first-person sci-fi. Again, it's kind of a looter shooter.
Yes.
I mean, it is, but it sort of isn't as well. I mean, it's not. It's a really strange game, and it's hard to describe how like empty it is as an experience without experiencing it for yourself. Especially as it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And plays like the sort of shooting and stuff, and they have all these different guns and a lot of really good sound effects and visuals for them. And some of the enemies you fight against are quite cool. I mean, it doesn't have the biggest roster of enemies, I would say. But there's these dudes with big, massive, like brute-like dudes with jetpacks. They're great. They're not very difficult to kill, but I like the fact that they have jetpacks and they just jetpack about the place.
That's what you want in a sci-fi shooter.
Yeah, and obviously the people who make this game, some of them are like really, really into their sort of classic sci-fi, because there's all these amazing like environments. Like you go to Mars and it's just totally like sci-fi Mars with like monoliths and that sort of stuff, and then you go to somewhere else and it's completely different. Really good, and all wasted on a terrible, terrible game that's unrewarding. And also, now that they've switched it to free to play, completely bewildering if you've never, if you've not like been with it from the start. Because one of the things they did is they made everything available at the beginning, as in like every game mode, just about, and they all have like names and you don't know what any of them are, and it's just throwing all these things at you one after another. It's like, oh, you can do this now, you can do that now, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do in this game? Like, there's like, I've written a list that you can do: bounties, quests, assignments, adventures, patrols, story missions, strikes, nightfall, the ordeal, raids, public events, seasonal events, faction events. There's Gambit. There's like
just an overloading amount of stuff, basically.
Yeah, and the nutty thing is, when you first start, and it doesn't even matter what you do, because everything you do gives you the same drops, basically.
Right. Which
the game is about. So it doesn't even like matter. You spend all your time chasing a number. This is like where it ties into what you were talking about with Ghost Recon. Ultimately, what you're doing is making a number go up.
Yes.
Your light rating. And that's kind of what you do. And it just seems all so futile and pointless. I tell you, there is one cool thing in it, right? Are the raids. I believe they're cool because they're kind of like multiplayer puzzles.
Yep.
There's one that takes place on this massive spaceship. I think it's called the Leviathan or something. And it's not just a case of like shooting lots of dudes. There's like, you know, it's like shooting lots of dudes, but also you have to solve a sort of Crystal Maze style puzzle in each of the rooms to get to like the next area.
There should
ship,
be
I think, is
more games with Crystal Maze style puzzles in.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, here's a massive unicorn key, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? It's like, I mean, it's still shooting. But the thing is, the problem with that is they're multiplayer. So I'm not able to do them because you need like other friends to play with you. You can't do it with randoms because it requires like communication.
Yes.
So they've turned off matchmaking for raids. So you have to somehow get another group of players to do it with you. So I wasn't able to do.
Yes,
so it was like a massive disappointment. That's the only thing that I thought would be quite interesting about it. And like, you know, you're like, oh, people are like, oh, you can join a clan or something, but I know, like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I'm not joining a Destiny clan.
Imagine the toxicity.
But also the fun is figuring out, and they would already know how to do everything.
Yes.
So yeah,
I would agree totally with that. I mean, I play with one of my mates. I play games with one of my mates, and I was really annoyed at him for getting Borderlands 3 after we all kind of agreed that we were going to wait until after Christmas to get it. Because apparently one of my mates, his wife was going to buy him it for Christmas, and he was just like, right, okay. So we were like, yeah, let's just wait until after Christmas and we'll play it together. And what he's done is he's got Borderlands 3, played through the entire thing and said that he'll play through it with us again after Christmas. But that's just going to be annoying for that reason that you just mentioned, is that basically what's going to happen is the rest of us are just going to be walking about, running around after him while he runs straight to the objective. Yeah. That's one thing that playing with people, you know, that kind of annoys me, because one of the things I do like in games is the discovery of them. Finding things out for yourself and to go, oh, well, this is cool. And when somebody's basically railroading you through a game, that fun just drops off completely.
Yeah, it's the worst. I totally agree. So sadly, I've had to give up on Destiny 2 and its soulless loop of chores.
Okay. Anything else for us?
Yeah, Major League Baseball 19, the show.
Here we go.
I don't really have a lot to say about this. It's baseball. I'll tell you, this game as well. This game has so many game modes when you go into it. It's so confusing. I think all sports games are like this now. I'm sure if I played FIFA, it would be exactly the same. I'd go into like FIFA 20 or whatever, and it would just be because people buy these games year after year after year.
Yeah.
So they know what the score is. So not only is it baseball, a game which I only really understand the basic rules of, which is not enough to understand baseball.
No, it's not.
You know, you can understand the rules, but that's just the beginning. Like, there's so much more.
Yeah, I enjoy watching baseball, and there are times when, like, I sit there and I think, right, I think I've got this game figured out, and then something happens that I just really don't understand. Like, there's been some call from the referee or the umpire or whatever, and I'm just kind of like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, like, even there's just so much terminology around the game.
I think so. I think that's the confusing part.
And also, I don't know who any of the players are, apart from Ken Trout or whatever he's called. I know who he is. He's like the...
Well, apparently you don't know his name.
Well, whatever. It's like, he's called Trout. There was an article about him, and the article was about the most... Well, I can't remember, the baseball player that nobody knows, but he's like the most successful baseball player, and probably will be the best baseball player of all time by the time he's finished his career. So I vaguely know who he is, and that's it. So that's a problem as well, because a lot of it is about knowing players and knowing their strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, but all the game modes and whatever. However, the best thing about it, as Chris will know, because we played a bit of the 2014 one, and one of the best bits about it is creating your own player, and there's a whole mode for that where you can create your own player and take them on some. Oh man, I mean, it's got all this stuff now where you're on social media and supposedly trash talking your friends, and it's terrible. But what amuses me, apart from trying to make them look as funny as possible, which is important because you're going to see them a lot, so you want them to look the part, is you can give them a funny name, and you get to choose from the huge list of pre-recorded first and second names.
Yep.
And there's a lot of potential there for... I mean, you can go nuts, but there's for the more childish among us, like myself, there's a lot of potential for getting the rudest possible names that you can out of it, and then getting to listen to the commentators read them out. So I mean, I'm Big Daddy Wang, but there's like,
well, obviously, why would you not be that?
I'm sure there's more if you've got the time to go through them all. So yeah, I've been playing that, and I've been playing a bit of Monster Hunter as well. It's a similar vein in Monster Hunter, because I spent a good hour in the character creator, I would say, in Monster Hunter, because although you spend a lot of the game looking at the back of their head, because it's a third person thing, there are quite a lot of cutscenes where you get to, get to see your character. And they look ridiculous anyway, but like, my guy just looks amazing. And for me, that's a lot of the fun of the game, is making him wear amazing, ridiculous outfits, and seeing him in the little cutscenes, mute always, just kind of going, That's what he does.
This is the game that my girlfriend calls Monster Shopping Simulator. Because you get to a point in the game where you're just kind of like, I'm just going to upgrade weapons and make sets of armor and stuff that are for specific monsters and that kind of thing. You end up creating a shopping list of all the bits that you need from certain monsters, and you just go and kill those monsters to get those bits, and you repeat until you've got everything you need. And she was sitting watching me play it, and she was just kind of like, I mean, all you're doing is shopping for monsters here. I was like, yeah, pretty much. I did enjoy Monster Hunter World, though. I think that it was a good game for a while. It did kind of got to a point where you were just kind of like, I can't be bothered anymore. But
yeah,
it was fun while it lasted.
That's how it is. Eventually, you're like, you're kind of just doing the same thing.
Yeah,
it's a cycle. You're like killing monsters in order to upgrade your armor and weapons in order to kill more monsters.
Yeah, basically, to kill bigger monsters. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's such a good game. It's so well made.
Yes, I agree.
It's like compared to, like, I was saying about Destiny, how it just throws everything at you. Like, Monster Hunter has a lot to it. I mean, it's not complicated, but it has a lot of stuff. But it kind of rolls it out to you bit by bit.
Yeah.
So like every so often they're like, oh, you can do this thing as well, and you can do that thing. It doesn't just give you everything in one go and leave you like totally confused about what everything is for and what it's called. It's really well designed.
Japanese games can be quite confusing, but at the same time, they do tend to have that drip feed thing. I mean, there tends to be a lot of stuff in these Japanese games in terms of like things that you can do, and like, you know, little extra bits and all that sort of stuff. But they do, like I say, they do tend to drip feed it to you rather than, here you go, you're out in the world now. Here's all the things. Go and figure it out.
Yeah, it's just done really, really well.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't explain. There's a lot of depth to this game for people who are really into that sort of thing, and it doesn't even attempt to explain to that sort of level, like how the weapons and all the damage numbers and stuff work. It doesn't even tell you the full move sets for a lot of the weapons.
Yep.
But you don't need that stuff to get the sort of basic enjoyment out of it. To play your 40 hours or that most people will play for until they reach the point where they're like, okay, that's enough. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I like that there's a new edition for Iceborne. I mean, apart from all the new content, which I can't even get to because you have to finish the main game first. So I've not even seen any of the new monsters. I don't think I really need to necessarily. But they've done this thing where you can ride on the monsters.
Oh, wow.
I don't think you could do that before.
Well, do you mean ride on them as in like climb up them and stick your weapon in their face?
Sorry,
but
not that. The smaller monsters.
Yeah.
You can ride on their backs, but they've done it really cleverly. It's like a really nice addition. Once you've tracked a monster, you can ride. It's called Raider Ride. You can call like one of the smaller dinosaurs. A friendly one. I mean, they're all basically dinosaurs.
Yeah, I see.
And you hop on its back, and it follows the trail to where the big monster is, the one that you're tracking. Or in fact, anything. You can just mark a waypoint on the map, and it'll just ride there.
Well, that's pretty good.
And while you're, and it doesn't. Again, you can't do this straight away. This is something that unlocks a little bit later in the game. But, right about the point where you're like, oh, it's a bit tedious having to just follow this stupid trail all the time.
Yeah.
It was fun to begin with, but I've kind of had enough of it. It's like, well, you don't have to now. You can ride on your little...
That's good.
I don't know the names of any of the monsters. Well, and while you're on the back of it, you can sharpen your sword, you can eat
brilliant.
things.
Yeah,
you can
I might have
pick
to play
up
this
stuff
again.
you're walking past.
Because one of the things that kind of frustrated me about the game was some of the maps some of them are a wee bit complex in the way that they're laid out, and it's
not half.
Like, it's not entirely clear how you get from A to B.
Yes.
So having that sounds like they've kind of solved a little problem there that probably people were getting annoyed with, to be honest.
Yeah, it's nice. It's just it's what they call a quality of life.
Yeah.
I don't really like that. Don't like that term very much, but
do you not like a quality of life, Dave? You know, like a high quality of life.
Just like calling it that, because then people start using it for everything.
Yes, they actually do, don't they?
It's like, you could skip the cutscenes. It's a nice quality of life improvement. Like, what?
You mean you've made the game better and less annoying?
Yes. Right, anyway, that concludes my roundup for this week.
That was a chunky roundup, Dave, and you've managed to get a lot in there, so, well done. Well done. I'm glad to hear that you've been having a bad time.
It was a mixed bag.
Mixed bag. This has been quite a negative episode. For our first episode back, we have, given some games a hard time here.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll be honest all the time. So let's move on then to something a bit more positive, shall we?
Yes.
And this, again, it's probably a good or a bad thing that Pavel isn't here, because for some reason Pavel has a very very negative reaction to mobile gaming, and I don't know why. I remember we were recording an episode and you talked about a mobile game, or one of us did, I can't remember, it might have been you, actually. And Pavel was like, bah, bah, bah. Mobile gaming, duh. But I found a mobile game. And I don't play a lot of mobile games, so I found a mobile game that I actually really enjoy. And it's called Golf Blitz. which is strange because golf isn't a game that I play in real life. But golf games are actually quite fun some of the time, depending on how realistic they are. But this is a sort of golf game with a difference, and it's almost kind of like a crazy golf game in name, I would say, because it is a bit mad. It's a multiplayer thing, so you're playing online against other people, and it's a 2D game, and it's very colourful. It's very sort of cartoony in its style. But it's a 2D thing where you're playing against up to 4 people. And it is a mad race to get to the hole. So you don't wait, you don't take turns, you don't do any of that golfy stuff. You can hit each other's balls and things like that. And you're just basically racing to get the hole, and whoever gets into the hole first gets the most points. And after you play a certain number of holes, somebody will reach the point limit, and that person wins, and you will gain trophies based on that. And the trophies are kind of just a measure of how good you are at the game, essentially. So the more trophies you've got, the better you are, and you'll then get matched up against people of similar trophy level. So you can kind of find your level in this game as well. It's really fun. Like, there's a little timer in between your shots, but you can upgrade your character so that you can reduce that timer. You can upgrade your character so that you can hit the ball harder. You can there's a little difference. You can hit the ball harder and you can hit it faster, and those are two different things. And the faster thing is actually how quickly your ball will come to rest. If you see what I mean, it's kind of strange because it can be very confusing. So hitting the ball faster doesn't necessarily mean you hit it harder. A bit confusing, but there's little power-ups in it as well, so that, every level, everybody gets the same 3 power-ups, and you've got this little thing that I think they call it elixir level, which sort of gradually fills up as you go through, and each power-up has a different number on it. So if you get up to 4 elixir, you can use the speedy ball, or you get up to 5 elixir, you might be able to use the powerful ball. But there's things like sticky balls that are force field balls that stop you from getting, like if your ball lands in water, you'll bounce off it rather than just being dunked into it and losing that shot. There are lasers in some of the games. Your force field ball protects you from that. There are things like grenade balls where as soon as your ball comes to rest, it will just blow up and smash all the other balls away from it. And it's fast paced, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, I've played so much of this game over the past couple of months, and I've enjoyed it immensely. Now, because it's a mobile game, we have to go down that road of, there is this whole thing where you can buy credits, and because there's this whole thing where you get packs. If you do well in a game, you'll get a pack, and then you can unlock a pack by pressing on it, and it starts a timer, and then 2 hours of real time pass, then your little pack will open, and it has cards inside it, and it's really just like, you get a certain number of cards of the same type, you can unlock an aesthetic thing for your golfer, or it also levels up your skill balls, basically. So your power ball, your speed ball, all those kind of things, those will level up as well, and that means your powerful ball, you can make that go even further, or your speedy ball, you can go faster, you can make it more accurate, or that kind of thing. And you have experience points, and it's actually through leveling up your aesthetic things and your power and your skill balls that give you experience. So not actually playing the game itself gives you experience, it's the cards that give you experience, essentially. And you need to have the sort of in-game credits in order to level up your cards and that kind of thing. And then you'll go up in levels. Every time you go up in level, you can put skill points into your character. Wee bit confusing there, but it does make sense after a while. Now, you do get to a point in this game where you do earn these sort of in-game credits through the packs themselves. You'll get money out of those. But you can buy these credits as well. You'll hit a sort of plateau sort of thing where you'll get to a point where you don't have anywhere near enough credits in order to unlock another thing from your decks, basically. Another set of cards. And so you can buy things. But you don't need to do that. You can enjoy the game as it is. You can just accept the fact that your golfer's hit a certain level, and it's going to be a very, 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 very long time before you can level that character up again. But like I say, you don't have to do that. You can just enjoy the game as it is, because the game is so much fun, and there are lots of different worlds. So like when you play against a bunch of people, you'll be put into a world, and all your there's different holes in each world that you'll play. And they all sort of kind of theme. Some of them have got very sticky walls. Some of them are in space, for example, where there's just lots of open space in between your next shots and stuff, and you have to be kind of accurate with them. And There are like ones that are just got lots of platforms, one with things that'll boost your ball in certain directions, and just makes it all a bit more crazy. Hell of a lot of fun. I did actually buy some of the credits that we talked about because I thought to myself, I've played this game that much that I actually want to support these developers because they've made such a fun game that I actually thought it was worth me just chucking a fiver at them. The game was free, so it's worth chucking a fiver at them and just saying, there we go, I'm going to level my character up a little bit more. But because you're only ever matched up against people at your skill level, you never feel like you are, that you have to pay to win, if you see what I mean. So it doesn't really make too much difference. Totally recommend this. If you just want... the games only take, they can take less than 5 minutes. I've played games that have taken 2 minutes. And you can just go into another game. There's no limit on how much you can play the game or anything like that. You can just keep playing. You can make little teams and that kind of thing. So me and my girlfriend have got a little team. So this is the other thing. The game is that much fun. My girlfriend, who hates golf, hates it with a passion, plays this game a lot, probably more than I do. And she's now...
To be fair,
sorry?
Oh, I was going to say, it doesn't really sound a lot like real golf.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, like, I thought to myself, like, this would be quite fun for her to join in on. She sat and watched me playing some games of it, and then actually she was just like, yeah, I'm going to try that. And the thing about it is that she's slowly creeping up through the trophy levels as well. So she keeps saying, I'm never going to be as good as you. She's nearly caught up with me. Like, she has nearly caught up with me. And this is my girlfriend who is not a gamer. She doesn't play games, and yet she's managing to, like, push her way up through the ranks of this golf game just because she's actually getting better and better and better at it, to the point where I think she would now give me a run for my money if I played her, which I'm so happy about. Like, I'm so happy about that. I would love to be able to play a game against her and actually, like, feel challenged even though she's not a gamer. Yeah, it's just such a great game. I would totally recommend that if you just like a daft little game, fast paced, colourful. The music is fantastic. My girlfriend hates it because she says she thinks it's going to give her a heart attack because it's really fast paced, but the music is really good in it. Sound effects are all good in it, and you could edit your characters to make them look in certain ways. Mine's has got an alien, the face hugger alien. He's got one of those in his face, but he's also in his underpants. So that's the character I play. One thing I will say, there's no sort of real chat in between games. Like, so in between levels, there's a little screen that comes up, and there's a little selection of words that you can say. So you can say like thanks or sorry. But you can also, there's little like laughing faces that you can do and stuff, and those are pretty cool. But the thing is that there isn't really a great level of moderation going on with the names. So yes, there have been some things that you would probably term as hate speech coming up in people's names that they've chosen for their characters. So just be wary of that. So obviously things like fuck and shit are banned. Like, they automatically won't get in. But, expect to see some pretty horrendous names while you're playing this, but just, try to ignore it. And obviously, if I do see somebody with that kind of name, I try and make a point of smashing their ball into the water or something like that. Just, ruin the game for them. Great fun. Golf Blitz. The people that make this game, they are called Noodle Cake Studios. I should say this game's on Android and iOS, but they've made some other games called Super Stickman Golf, which I think is kind of predecessors to this Golf Blitz game. I think Super Stickman Golf, don't quote me on this, so I'm going to assume that that's like a single player thing, whereas Golf Blitz is the multiplayer version of it, essentially. But they seem to be quite popular. They do have like their own YouTube channel and stuff where they play like season finales and that kind of thing, like the best players in the world go up against each other. I've sat and watched some of these people playing. God knows how they do it.
Yeah, it's depressing.
It is depressing when you watch somebody who's a lot better than you. But yes, Golf Blitz, amazing fun. Go and get it.
Sounds cool.
It's free. Yeah. So there we go, some positivity to end on. Yep, end of the episode, Dave. How did you fancy that after 4 months off?
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
We'll wait another 4 months.
Yeah, we'll wait another 4 months for another. I'm going to say, actually, you know what we talked about in the last video games episode we did, and this is how long ago it was. Do you remember what we talked about?
No.
Cooking Simulator.
Oh, yeah.
And Baba is you.
Yes.
See, that was a while ago now. Cooking Simulator, they added in What was it they added in that made everything absolutely much more useful? Oh, a ladle. A soup ladle. It was something the game was crying out for, and they added it in. There's now no more pouring the soup into a bowl from the pot.
Yeah. I mean, people. It's funny because people like the fact that the game is chaotic and stupid.
Yes.
But having to like portion soup by having a 6-gallon pot and pouring it into like bowls.
A tiny bowl.
Yes. People are like, this is not very realistic.
This is not what a chef would do.
So they listened, and now there's a ladle. And umpteen other, I mean, I get updates from them pretty regularly on new things. So it's still going strong.
Are you excited about Shenmue 3? That's going to turn up in the next sort of week or two.
I'm not that excited about it because I'm not going to play it.
I am. See, that was the point where you were supposed to say, Chris, are you excited about it?
Well, I'm excited about hearing indirectly from you what it's like.
I'm sure Pavel will have a lot to say about it as well.
Yeah. I hope it's not a letdown.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
It does look pretty cool. I'm looking forward to finally finding out what happens to Rio. Oh. We've only waited about 20 years to find out, so...
I was going to say, is he going to be like in his late 30s
now? No. It's literally set amazing. Like a day after the game ends in Shenmue 2. Just something like that. So it's still like 1987 or whatever year it's set in. Okay. We will do our internet stuff. If you want to email us, you can do so at firstplayertoken@gmail.com. That's FIRST player token. You can find us on Twitter at 1STplayertoken. If you want to find out anything else about us, you can go to our website, which is www.firstplayertoken.com. Again, that is FIRST player token. And we are part of the Podnose network. You can go to their website, which is podnose.com, and find out a lot about the different podcasts that are on there, which we are a part of. Well, let's round up there. We will be back soon, sooner than 4 months. We're hoping next week with a episode of some description. We have played some board games and stuff, so I'm sure that we'll get around to making another board games episode soon. But until then, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.